Hey yo, before we get into the video, go check out K-Spot TV, episode 1. You know what I'm saying? That joint is hilarious, bro. You know what I'm saying? Go check it out.
On the question, the P on the we on the we gon' collect the E on the T on the D on we day on the T on we on the fest, the C's on the heat on we on the fest.
Bow! What's good, homies? It's your boy K-Spot. You know what I'm saying?
On the question, the P on the we gon'
First of all, I'd like to thank y'all for all the amazing support y'all have been showing me, you know what I'm saying? You know, my videos, you know what I'm saying? The last 3 videos of drops have done well, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'd like to thank y'all for supporting me so much, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully I can get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. You know, something light. But it looks like it's gonna happen, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I appreciate y'all. A highly requested video has been Khabib, Rise of a Savage, you know what I'm saying? I got the video with me. I hope it's the right video. It should be the right video, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I ain't gonna say no more. Let's go. Molly whopped.
While most 10-year-olds had their lazy asses plunked in front of a TV set playing World of Witchcraft or whatever, somewhere in the impoverished hills of Dagestan, a 10-year-old Khabib was out entertaining his comrades by rolling around in the dirt, grappling with a fucking bear. This video is just the type of
I've seen that video.
Russia
Go
shit
check out my
that can
reaction
begin
to it.
explain why Russian fighters are typically tough as fuck and can at times have an almost haunting indifference to the prospect of gratuitous violence and just general savagery at the highest levels. But wrestling a bear sounds more brutal than it actually was. The reality is, the bear looks all cute and cuddly, and Khabib is just playing around. To get to the root of what really makes Khabib hard as nails, there are political, economic, cultural, and geographic considerations. A good starting point, though, is the Spartan training camp in which Khabib was basically raised.
All right.
While developing his skills in the disciplines of wrestling, judo, and combat sambo, Khabib lived with 15 other boys, training twice a day in an unforgiving military-style training regimen overseen by his father, Abdulmanap. Now,
I'm gonna stop here right there and let me tell y'all something. Russians are badass, bro. Don't get it twisted. Russians are badass. You know what I'm saying? You know, I don't know if any of y'all play Tekken. You know what I'm saying? I play Tekken. And my main is Dragunov. You know what I'm saying? He's a Russian character. There's just something about Russians that are so cool, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, kill you. Yes, me and Vlad are going to kill you. Damn. Alright, let's get back to it.
Whenever we hear of a fighter getting trained by his father, it immediately begs the questions, who is this guy and what are his credentials? Abdulmanap began training wrestling at the age of 8 as a powerful tool for self-defense and to instill discipline. At the age of 19, he joined the army. In 1981, I joined the Russian army and participated in all sorts of sports competitions during my time.
So he got his badassness from his father.
It was a school of discipline. He then went on to study judo in one of Ukraine's top universities and fought his way onto the Ukrainian judo team. Over the next couple of years, he began collecting trophies, winning national championships in 3 separate disciplines: judo, sambo, and freestyle wrestling. So obviously, in his own right, Abdulmanap was not a man to be fucked with. And by combining his vast experience of high-level combat sports with the rigid structure of military life,
in his blood,
he was the perfect man to mold young minds into a bunch of murderous fucking war machines. At the heart of Abdulmanap's training philosophy is the harsh principle of discipline or punishment. In a Russian documentary, Khabib stated, "There were a lot of punishments. I said to the father that I didn't want to study. He punished.
Damn.
When he explained to me with words, I didn't understand. With the fists, I understood immediately. So by punishment, we're not talking about taking away Khabib's Game Boy.
Nah, you're
It was
getting
more of a
socked in the
step out of
face.
line and get the fuck smacked out of you by a grown-ass man style discipline. This type of corporal punishment and military lifestyle may seem extreme or even barbaric in the West. But in Dagestan at the time, most young men were facing two options: a career in sports or militant Islam. So if you go to career guidance in Dagestan,
I'm gonna stop it right there again. You know what I'm saying? He was whooped as a kid. You know what I'm saying? And that is true in the West. We're like, oh, he hit his child. Listen, man. You know, I live in Sweden now, but you know what I'm saying? I grew up in Africa. You know what I'm saying? And as a kid, I got my ass whooped. You know what I'm saying? I got beat. You know what I'm saying? Straight up discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me know if you got an ass whooping as a kid too. You know what I'm saying? If you did, my nigga. You know what I'm saying? We got whooped together. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but in the West, do not put your hand on this child. Boy, I got whooped.
On the quest to be on the we gon'
you might be getting a fucking death sentence. In the Western world, we have the privilege of peaceful parenting. But there's no doubt in my mind that Abdulmanap was coming from a good place. He was doing everything in his power to equip his sons and students with everything they needed to deal with the harsh realities of the Caucasus. Having said that, even though that type of parenting is totally unnecessary in the West, when you look at some of the pathetic bullshit on college campuses these days, you almost wish you could stick some of these assholes in a container and ship them off to Dagestan to spend a semester or two with Abdulmanap. If they started yapping about campus safe spaces, then doctors would have to surgically remove Abdulmanap's boot from their ass like they're delivering a fucking baby. And the proof is in the pudding. Abdulmanap is regarded as the father of MMA in Dagestan. He's produced 20 Combat World Sambo champions, and at least 4 of his students have made it to the UFC.
He the real
There
deal,
are certain
then.
athletes whose story it's impossible to untangle from their mentor. Mike Tyson and Customato, for example. A big part of Tyson's success came from his reverence for the wisdom of his teacher and the humble acceptance that even in the face of enormous success, he was still the student. Well, Khabib very much has this reverence for Abdulmanap. It's shameful to offend a father or an elder. If you're punished, it means you deserved it. And it must be
True.
incredibly powerful when the man
That's a
guiding your
fact.
career and teaching you everything you know is also your primary motivation. After an emotional win over Abel Trujillo, Khabib stated, "My main motivation is my father. He invested a lot of time into me. He brought me up and made a man out of me. And his happy face after the fight is the best reward for me. I cannot let him down." Khabib has stated that his father always created the toughest conditions with the stated goal of either mentally breaking Khabib or driving him to reach that next level, constantly striving to improve.
That's dope.
Now, say what you want about the method,
Pushing his
but
limits.
that type of relentless striving is how you create one tough motherfucker.
Yeah, it's totally
with
worth
an
it.
unbreakable spirit and
Undefeated.
a work ethic that shits all over your regular, average, world-class fighter. To summarize that whole point, Khabib was simply bred to be a savage. It's not what he does, it's who he is. When Khabib was discussing the time he spent injured, he said the following: "It was like someone takes you and puts you in jail, like you were isolated." In other words, martial arts and violence is how Khabib relates to the world. Without it, he feels completely cut off from humanity.
Damn.
Every nation
That's a true
is a
fighter right
fighting
there.
nation, if you go back far enough. But in Dagestan, there's still blood on the soil. There's a brilliant article on Bloody Elbow describing the history of the region. Dagestan and the Caucasus were conquered by the Soviet Union in the 1800s in a brutal takeover that lasted almost 50 years.
Damn.
Since then, the region has played host to a series of attempts to establish an independent Islamic state, often centered in Dagestan. The most recent of these was in 1999, when there was a brief conflict between warring Islamic factions vying for control of the region. The whole affair lasted only 6 weeks, before Russian airstrikes bombed the fuck out of their asses and brought an emphatic end to the conflict. Abdulmanap believes the conflict had an impact on his children. The simmering tensions and constant threat of danger in the region placed training in a very different context, namely as preparation for the potential onset of war. I believe every man must be ready for war, even in peaceful times. It is always a topic of discussion in the Caucasus. We often hear fighters say, "I'll fight anywhere. I'll fight in the street." But when Khabib says it in that calm, ice-cold, matter-of-fact monotone, you believe him. I'm sure for most fighters, the UFC is about the highest stakes they can imagine. But from the time Khabib was a child, grappling with a bear, his subconscious has likely been grappling with the prospect of a fight with far greater consequences, where it's not a matter of win bonuses and title shots, it's a matter of life and fucking death.
Damn.
The usual pressure and nerves associated with a fist fight must have muted significance for someone whose whole psychology has adapted to living in an area of boiling hostility between radical Islamic fundamentalists. Good luck getting in Khabib's head. The guy is ice cold. He states his intentions without any theatrics or emotion, like he's simply stating a fact. Water is wet, the sky is blue, I'm gonna fucking smash you.
Bro, let me tell you something. This dude Khabib, he's one scary dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like even if I was friends with him, even if he smiled at me, I still feel some kind of fear, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, then I'll smile back so I don't piss him off type shit, you know what I'm saying? Damn.
Can you imagine the build-up for McGregor versus Khabib? A lot was made of the confrontation heading into 205, but for me, a better summary of the two personalities were their post-fight interviews. Both were fucking glorious. Conor was his usual brash, charismatic self. Where the fuck is my other belt?
Where the fuck is me other belt?
Motherfuckers. Khabib, on the other hand, was cool, concise, and supremely confident in the face of a hostile
he's
crowd.
calm as hell.
Beginning
I've
of year,
noticed that.
he tapped like chicken. End of year, he fight for title. There's only 6 million Irish. There's 150 million Russians. On the MMA Hour, John Kavanagh later replied, "It may be 150 million versus 6 million, but when that cage door closes, it's one-on-one."
True.
Perfect. No disrespect to Ferguson, but when you consider everything, the styles, a surgical striker versus a relentless grappler, the psychological warfare, a mouth that can decimate opponents versus an unbreakable will, the personalities, confident and overstated versus equally confident but understated. Khabib versus McGregor is my most anticipated fight for 2017. It is a glorious clash of two polar opposite titans of the sport.
Oh, so this Rise of a Savage was before
prime.
the fight.
Does not get any better.
Okay.
If you developed a photo negative of McGregor,
They had a
you'd have a
they used to be
picture of
friends?
Nurmagomedov, probably holding a fucking knife. The last thing I want to briefly touch on is the geography, religion, and culture of the region. In the
Okay.
documentary, Khabib stated, "We have grown up in such severe conditions, in mountains. Therefore, it is evident in our spirit. Compare 15 minutes in the cage to life in the mountains. It is incomparable." Abdulmanap has stated, "In my opinion, training deep in the mountains is an irreplaceable part of training. You simply cannot go 3 or 5 full rounds without elevation training." With regards to religion, Khabib is a devout Muslim, which, as we know, does not tolerate vices like drink or drugs.
Okay.
If you went out of your way to orchestrate the perfect circumstances to produce a physical and mental monster, you'd have a hard time doing better than the cold, cruel mountains of Dagestan. And that is the monster who arrived on American shores. By the time Khabib made it to the UFC, he had spent almost his entire life training at altitude, under Spartan conditions, in a remote mountain town, with no serious distractions outside the terrifying prospect of civil war, while practicing a religion that simply does not permit vices. Khabib's not your average fighter. He is a fucking savage.
On the quest to be on the we gon'
Hey, shout out to y'all for recommending this video, Rise of a Savage, you know what I'm saying? It's a dope video. I know a lot more about Khabib now, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, so basically his father was a straight up monster who decided that, I'll create another monster, you know what I'm saying? And it paid off, you know what I'm saying? Undefeated in the UFC. And hey, man, I'm a fan of Khabib now, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because he's a badass, you know what I'm saying? Undefeated. He's clearly a monster. He's from Russia. Hey, bro, I love Russia, bro. There's just something about Russia that just so cool, bro. You know what I'm saying? The way they speak, he is. That accent was ass, but hey, if there are any more Khabib videos you want me to check out, then, let me know. Of course, I'm going to react to other stuff as well. It's not just going to be UFC on this channel, you know what I'm saying? I'll be reacting to all kinds of videos, basketball, for just everything, you know what I'm saying? I got a separate channel where I just react to music, but on this channel, I'm going to be reacting to everything and anything, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, it's been your boy K-Spot.
on the quest to be on the we gon'